I'll just introduce ourselves. So I'm Jordan Davis, the Comms and Interpretation Officer from Warwickshire Wildlife Trust. I specifically work on the Sherborne Valley Project, which is a project to restore the River Sherborne, which flows through Coventry. So we do a lot of engaging with the public, putting a lot of information out there. We've done a lot of restoration work as well. And yeah, I'm joined here today by Alex, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Alex Jodens. I'm a Ecology and Biodiversity Officer for Coventry City Council. So it's a quite varied role, but two of my main thrusts are trying to find ways to improve wildlife habitat in Coventry and incorporate biological recording, of which City Nature Challenge is a big part, into what we do, and find out which animals and plants, etc., are using Coventry as home. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, that works quite nicely as a little introduction to City Nature Challenge and what we're going to be talking about. So it's for those who kind of registered online, we've kind of phrased it as an iNaturalist training. So for a very quick roundup of kind of how that works. So iNaturalist is an app you can find on your smartphones. There's also a sort of a dashboard interface for if you want to go on your laptop, for example. But it's essentially an app that helps you register and record wildlife. So you can put pictures on and it will give you recommended identifications. Other people can then support with verifying those records. And it all kind of is the app of use for the City Nature Challenge, which is a 4-day long weekend at the end of April each year. So Alex and myself and a few other people around Coventry, Solihull and Warwickshire all sort of grouped together to put on loads of different events to encourage people to kind of take part in this challenge. We'll talk more about it in a minute to kind of fully introduce the challenge and give a bit of history on it, etc. But that's a very, very quick intro to what we're talking about today. Okay, I'll go to the next slide for you, Alex.
Yeah, lovely stuff. I think it's nice to give a bit of a background as to why record nature, and I think more specifically, why get involved in what we call citizen science, which this event definitely covers. So we've got a brief potted history. I've put down a note to myself to not talk too long, so I could talk for ages about this, because it's something that I'm really passionate about. There's just a few examples of what the outcomes of this have been historically, and then I think at the end of the presentation we look at what the outcomes are growing into with the use of iNaturalist and the City Nature Challenge event. But I think maybe my favourite there is Mary Anning. So she's a famous fossil hunter from the 1800s. Unfortunately, in her case, she wasn't allowed to join the British Geological Survey because she was a woman. But she kept on doing the thing that she loved. She kept on collecting fossils around Lyme Regis and found, I think she's pictured next to, I think that's an ichthyosaur. If there's any paleontologists in the chat who want to say it's a different marine dinosaur, do let me know. Yes, some of the most complete remains, and actually grow our scientific understanding, her work as a citizen scientist, into what extinction was. And extinction wasn't a concept that really existed at the time that she started work, and by the time that her findings had been recorded and analysed, our thought began to accept that new theory. So phenomenally foundational work, and a very celebrated scientist, albeit sadly, I think, after her own lifetime. Another really fun example is usually think of citizen science growing in sort of like probably around the 1970s-ish. In Japan, they started a lot earlier than most other places. And that's because they have a tradition called, I think it's Hanami, which is the celebration of cherry blossoms coming out every year, which they're about to or are doing here at the moment, which is fantastic. But it means that they've kept sort of almost accidentally really complete records of the bud burst of cherry trees, so when their flowers open, which is tied to climate cycles very closely, and it gives us this unique data set of hundreds of years of climate change, basically. So again, incredible work that people who aren't scientists do. And that's the key thing about citizen science. It's not performed by trained scientists, it's performed by people who are interested and want to do something to sort of help or get active. And then Big Garden Birdwatch is a personal one for me, because I think I've been participating for almost 20 years now. But it's again amazing. So it started in 1979 as a one-off event for the RSPB to try and gain a bit of publicity, and it was so phenomenally popular. They've not stopped doing it since. So I've got continuous records of 13.4 million hours last year, to give you an idea of how long people spend doing this every year. I was from the RSPB website earlier, but decades of continuous large numbers of biological records to do with garden birds, which has really helped with scientific understandings of things like trichomoniasis, which is the greenfinch plague you might have heard about, and how that's affected populations. So again, it really has formed the foundation of science. And then lastly, very quickly, quite a fun one, so that's Penguin Watch. So this is to do with remote sensing technology and AI, and it's training an AI to be able to reliably distinguish penguins from rocks and other things. That I think I've not actually done it myself, I'm ashamed to admit. It's a big favourite of my colleagues in the council ecology team. I think it's on the Falklands, but every click you make on a thing that's actually a penguin makes that AI better at counting penguins, which in turn helps develop a better understanding of penguin population dynamics in the southern hemisphere. So there you go. Citizen science sort of really does drive science forward, and everyone can be a part of it, which is hopefully what we'll convince you of in the next sort of 30-ish minutes. But yeah, I'm ready for the next slide. Okay, so what is the City Nature Challenge? So it's started relatively recently, and as you'll see shortly, has absolutely exploded in popularity, like lots of good ideas do. So I think it started as a master's project from someone at I think it was LA University, wasn't it? One of the Los Angeles universities, drawing 1,000 students to participate as a bit of a competition between two universities in San Francisco and Los Angeles. They made almost 20,000 observations in the first year, so a lot of hard work. But then I think 1 year later, it had ballooned in popularity to 16 cities in America. And then it was the next year, testing my memory here, yep, it became global, 68 cities across 17 countries. So yeah, at that point, absolutely goes bananas. So by 2025, sort of on the way to 700 cities across 62 countries, 100,000 people taking part, and literally millions of observations across. I mean, it's truly global. It's anywhere you can think of's probably got as a competing city. It's really, I guess, exciting if you're into that sort of thing. But then Coventry itself, I think that's our 5th year, isn't it? I think anyway. Yep. Mm-hmm. But we've been slowly clawing our way up the national leaderboard, which is one of our aims, along with having fun and recording lots of species. And we managed to come in the top 10 last year. Had 171 people taking part, 6,000 observations, 1,276 species, which is the best we've ever done by some way, actually. And we do have the sort of long-term rivalry with Birmingham that we'd like to beat them one day, but I think they came 3rd or 4th last year. So this year we might crack the top 5 is the plan. Yeah, so really big competition, really exciting and really fun. A nice time of year to be doing it as well. Yeah, if you want to move on.
Okie dokie. Okay, so when is City Nature Challenge essentially? It's always the last weekend in April each year. So it's a good kind of easy date to remember if you're kind of thinking, oh, maybe I want to do this next year as well. So it's a 4-day weekend essentially. So it's from Friday through to Monday. So this year it's from the 24th to the 27th of April. And then afterwards you get an extra 6 days once you've made your observations over the 4-day weekend to help identify them. So you can help identify your own records, or you can help identify and verify other people's that have kind of submitted either in your area or globally or nationally. It's a sort of a very easy thing for people to take part in to help with records anywhere, essentially. So this year we've got planned at least 20 events throughout Warwickshire and Coventry and Solihull. So that's quite a lot of things happening over that 4-day weekend. So no matter where you're based, there's very much likely a good chance that there's going to be an event near you that's going to be sort of available at a sort of time that perhaps you're looking for in terms of if you're free at all that 4-day weekend. So there's a whole host of different things happening. Each event is kind of geared either slightly to a different audience or doing slightly different activities. So some of them could be pond dips, some of them could be just walks either along a canal or along the riverside or through woodland. Or we could do things like bat walks we've got going on. there's sweep netting, a whole host of different kind of cool ways to find and identify wildlife as well. So there's loads of things happening. So it's definitely an exciting long weekend. So each year we also invite other groups as well to kind of join this kind of collective that we've got going on of organisations that have that take part through Coventry, Warwickshire and Solihull. So if anyone who is listening to the call either today or on the recording and is part of a sort of local community group or part of an organisation that might perhaps want to take part, please do reach out to us. You can probably get in touch through the iNaturalist project page, be the easiest, or you can reach out to us at sherborne@wkwt.org.uk, and we can pass you on to anyone who's sort of relevant to kind of register interest in kind of taking part and hosting these events. So that's a kind of a good reason as to why there's so many events, because it's so open and so easy to be able to invite people to take part or to kind of put on an event or a walk amongst their local group. So it's very accessible. So whilst we've got so many different events on, it's important to note that you don't necessarily need to be at an event to take part. So if you're anywhere, I suppose, within Coventry, Warwickshire and Solihull over that 4-day weekend and using the iNaturalist application to submit records, then you're taking part and you're helping essentially Coventry, Solihull and Warwickshire to get numbers of records for this national and international leaderboard. If you're in a county or a country that isn't part of Coventry, Solihull, Warwickshire, for example, then you can still take part as long as there's sort of the area that you're in is part of the City Nature Challenge. And I think the majority of the counties in the UK now are most likely have got an iNaturalist project. So they might not always have the sort of grand variety of events that we've got on. But if there's an iNaturalist project page, then you can submit your records. So even if you're away over the weekend in a different county, for example, we'd still encourage you to submit and use the app to kind of find records and identify wildlife. As much as it might help other counties in the national leaderboard compared to us, we're not touchy about that. It's at the end of the day, you're having fun, you're learning how to identify wildlife, and you're supporting ecological records across the country. So we do definitely encourage that. But that being said, if you can do as much as you can to help us on the leaderboards, of course, we'd appreciate it, because it's a good bit of fun as well, and it's quite nice to have different aims and goals each year. So that's what we'd love to see. Okay, just clicking here. Okay, on to the next one. So it's really simple to submit records using iNaturalist. So in the very centre of your screen, you can see a QR code there. So if you've got your smartphones on you on the live call, or if you're watching this through the recording, you can pause the recording and scan your phones to the screen and use that QR code to download the iNaturalist app. One thing I probably need to just be aware of, I think there's a new iNaturalist app, isn't there, Alex? So this might be a QR code for the old iNaturalist app. So I'd just be wary when you're scanning this. It might be worth actually trying to download it from either the iNaturalist website or through searching in whatever app you're using, if it's Google Play or Apple App Store. I'd search just for iNaturalist, and it would be an icon of a sort of little green bird that you'll be able to see to download. So hopefully that one, I'm not sure if the old app is no longer downloadable, but it's just one thing I'd be aware of when you're looking to download. But the whole process is really simple. So if you found wildlife, so that could also be anything from a bird or a snail or a beetle or bug, or it could be plants. So it could be different wildflowers, which we tend to see a lot of records for because they're more stationary, so they're quite easy to find and photograph, which obviously makes sense. So all you need to do is find that wildlife, find that species, find that plant, for example, take a picture of it, either in the app itself. You can use the camera on the app, or you can use your camera on your smartphone if you don't have the app downloaded yet, for example. If you take a picture of wildlife over that 4-day weekend, and then you can download the app later and upload it if needs be. And then on the app, you click to make an observation and you submit those photos. And then either it will recommend to you what animal it might be that you're taking a photo of. There's an AI inbuilt within the app, which is actually very accurate. It's really good. So that can kind of help you to identify it. If you're an expert, or if you have, for example, wildlife identification guides with you. So if you kind of disagree with that AI recommendation, for example, you can select which species you think it is. And you'll also see that a lot of other users tend to jump on and help you verify and identify your records. So, or you can do the same for others if you know what certain species look like and you're a bit more of an expert, for example. So it's a really simple process, and there's a whole kind of varieties of ways you can engage with it. So again, this is sort of the similar slides, but kind of going into each individual point. So again, you find that stationary wildlife. It can also be wildlife that's on the move. You can use a camera if you've got a DSLR, for example, and you can then obviously download those photos to your smartphone or to your desktop if you're uploading to iNaturalist through the desktop website there. So you can kind of take photos of less stationary wildlife, and then it gives you a suggested identification. And the app, either the app itself, if you're using the camera version within the app, or the metadata through the picture that you've taken, will record the date and the sort of location for you. So then it will help for kind of locating that record on the database. Okay. So yeah, once you've taken that photo, technically that is your observation. So we'll discuss it a little bit more in a second, but you can also add notes into the observation. So for example, if you've taken a photo, but you know it's not the highest quality photo, maybe it's been raining, for example, or if you go back afterwards after having taken the photo and you notice it's a bit blurry, or if you know, for example, that you wanted to take multiple photos of different angles to help verify exactly which species it is, but you weren't able to. For example, if it was a bee that then flew off after you've taken one photo, you can include in your notes if you observed something else. So you can say, oh, the bee was orange in colour, or if it had this many bands on its wings, for example, that can help with identification if you add it into the notes as well.
You can also jump in there, George?
Yeah, go for it, Alex. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that it's come up a few times with people asking about protected species because of their geographic location. Their geographic location of protected species is automatically concealed to a 10-kilometre square. So I sort of found that out. Interestingly, I took a picture of an osprey on holiday and got contacted by a scientist doing an osprey study, and you have to actively choose to share when someone asks the location. So if you happen to find something sensitive around Coventry, like a raptor nest or evidence of badgers, it's not something you have to worry about. So I just wanted to pop that in there.
Yeah, just curious with that, Alex. Obviously, you said that's kind of an automatic scenario. Do you know, obviously, technically, because if, for example, you put in a badger footprint, but you don't know that it's a badger, that might not kind of cover that, I suppose. But
that's actually an interesting shout. Yeah. So yeah, I suppose if you're unsure, I think you can mark it as protected or vulnerable, can't you? But I'll double check that. But yeah, I think you can.
Yeah, so if you're kind of unsure, but you kind of have an inkling, you can still make a suggestion of what species it is, and then you can select it as a sort of protected species if you think it could be one. So that's something to bear in mind as well. And perhaps in the notes you can say you're not sure if it is that species that you've put, but you want to make sure, just in case it is a protected species, that the algorithm stops that from recording the location. So yeah, okay. So thanks for adding that in, Alex. That's a good point. Yeah, so then the identification, actually, it's the AI is really good to kind of have as a trained model, and it gives you a record of the percentage confidence it has in the identification as well. So you can understand just how reliable that suggestion might be. For a lot of people who might be new to it, you might be kind of more keen to take what they say as your recommendation, but bear in mind as well, and kind of you can be relaxed in the fact that there will be other people going on and trying to help verify those records as well. So another thing you can do that's a tip, if you, for example, think it's a certain species and it's recommended that it's a certain species, but you don't have full confidence or confidence in the AI, then you can select, for example, the class of the animal or class of the species, and you can kind of classify it as a different level rather than going down fully to the species level. So that's a different way of saying you think you know kind of roughly what it is, but even if you don't know exactly, that's okay. And then, yeah, your record also contributes to science. So once two people have verified your record and there's essentially a 2/3 agreement on what species it is, it then becomes classified as a research grade record, which then gets automatically submitted to your local records centre, which is obviously brilliant for ecology data and yeah, for people to be able to use for science and research, as well as the for many different applications as well as the sort of data for the project as well. So it can help in many different ways. So when you're using and downloading the app, there's a few different steps. So you download it from the app store that you've got, be that through the QR code that was shared earlier in the presentation or in your local app store. So you download the iNaturalist, and that's what the icon looks like, the sort of the white and the green bird. And then once you're in the application, there should be a selection of different options on the bottom, and one of those will be observe. It's usually the biggest one or the very center point. Once you've clicked observe, you then click to add or take a picture. You add that picture in, which then it kind of shows clearly at the top. And then underneath there's that little suggestion box which says, what did you see? And view suggestions. And that's the AI suggestion. So you can look at that and either take that fully on board or make a suggestion of what you saw to a different level. The data, as I said, added automatically through the metadata of the photo that you captured and through the camera that you've got. If you have slightly different, if you've maybe changed the settings in your phone to not capture certain metadata, you might need to enable those for this particular app. But if you're doing that perhaps anyway, you might want to consider taking photos either through your phone or through your DSLR and then uploading them manually and selecting the locations manually if you're kind of being a bit more sensitive about your own data and locations. And then once you've clicked that, what did you see? It gives you several suggestions, so it's not just one. Yeah, there's and it will tell you based on if that recommendation is from your local area or if it's visually similar as well. So not only does it work on visual recognition, the AI also understands what species are commonly seen in your area, so it can kind of use that data that you build in as well and that people are recording. And the more data that people capture through these sort of events or these City Nature Challenge weekends, the more this helps with identifying wildlife in the future for those areas as well. Okay, do you want to take over from here, Alex? We'll switch back.
Can do, yep. Yep, so it'll come up with the list of species, so select the species that you think are correct, and that opens then a sort of a sort of workflow, as it were. So if people think you're correct, they'll agree with you and sort of cast a vote, and then you'll be asked if you agree with their either agreement or disagreement, if that makes sense. And then eventually you'll get to the point where it becomes research grade. So that means I think 3 people have agreed with the identification. In the identification process, I will say you can get into quite interesting conversations with people. So you'll often get, if it's something unusual, say a lichen, for example, you'll sometimes get an expert who's on there sort of trawling for the thing that they're looking for, and they'll maybe tidy up your identification and you'll learn a few tips. And I've had some really, really nice interactions with people over the years on the app through that process as well. So it's quite nice. But yeah, once the consensus is reached, it becomes research grade, which then means it's going to be available to your local biological record centre, for example. and also will be available on various open source websites. So there's one called NBN Atlas, which is, I think, the National Biodiversity Network, where you can go and see species records where different animals, plants, and things live within the UK for free. And all of this data eventually gets funneled there. So that's why we're so keen to get it to research grade. And also it means it counts for the competition, doesn't it? So that's the other reason. Okay, if we move on. So yeah, and then the validation system. So this is something that is really important, and I think sort of gets underutilized by people in general. So it's, I suppose one way to look at it is it's very fun to go out and get the sightings, and maybe not as many people are sitting down at the computer in the evening and slowly working their way through the lists of organisms. It's something that I try and find a bit of time to do every week if I can, and that's literally just looking at the sightings, and if it's something you're comfortable to agree with. So, for example, on there, the 7-spot ladybird, I think most people who've got an interest in nature would be able to click on that and say, I agree with that identification. It is important to not try and ID things you're not 100% sure on, but I wouldn't say don't let that put you off getting involved in the validation process, because it is a really important part of the app and the sequence of getting those sightings to research grade. Yeah, if you've got a special interest, it can be quite fun. So one thing the app doesn't yet do, and hopefully it will do in the future, is identify bird songs. I know that there are other apps out there that can do that. So I'll often, because I'm a very keen bird watcher and I've been for a long time, I'll in downtime at my desk at the council, I'll spend 5-10 minutes listening to bird songs and trying to ID them and verify them. So if there's anything you're particularly interested in or to learn about, get them done. And yeah, those will go through to the Warwickshire Biological Records Centre, and then they can be used by people such as myself for planning ecology projects. They can be used in lots of other different ways to support our knowledge and help us plan for the future and protect nature in Coventry and Warwickshire. Yep, so it is important, as tempting as it might be, as you hit that frenzy of wanting to get to the top of the leaderboard, to take a photo of anything that is alive. We do need to try and focus on wild organisms, and naturally occurring is also a key phrase there. So, for example, I think on that picture, someone's taken a picture of a potted cactus on their windowsill. Don't do that, because that's not wild. It's in a pot on your windowsill, and it's not what the project's about. And the same would go for a pet chinchilla. Or I think we every year have had a dog and a cat, usually seen in a local park, but they are domesticated species. So yeah, don't go around the zoo and take a picture of everything. That's not what it's about. You can, for example, if you were doing your back garden and you wanted to get a lovely picture of your tulips or something, you can take a picture, and there is an option to flag it as captive or cultivated. So you can feel free to do that, but do try and tick that box that you can sort of see in the middle of the middle panel, which has been ticked there for the chinchilla, which has been recorded correctly. There is, I will just mention, it's a slight grey area, because I know the Sherborne Valley Project have got quite a big interest in garden escaped plants and invasive plants that have escaped botanical gardens, domestic gardens. So if you're, for example, in your local park and there's a crop of something that you think might not be domestic wild but is growing in the park, do try and make sure you take photos of them and record them, because it's really important that we gain knowledge on that. And I'm aware that some of the researchers at Coventry University use GBIF and iNaturalist as part of their research tools, so it will get through to scientists who will use it. So that's an interesting sort of side case. Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump back in here for just a second, and then and then I'll kind of hand back to you for some of the more kind of different angles and identification ways to take photos. So as with any photo, kind of very basic kind of tips, try to take as many photos as possible. So you don't just get to upload one photo when you're making your identification. You can upload multiple. So what we try to recommend is for people to try and capture multiple shots from different angles. This is really key for identifying certain species who, for example, might be only identifiable by the underside of their body, for example, if it's a beetle or a spider, for example. Obviously, try to, if you're doing that, try to be as minimally invasive to that animal as possible. Try to kind of not handle animals. We don't encourage people to handle animals if possible. But if you're, for example, doing any sweeping, net sweeping, for example, just be as careful as you can be, and as mindful of the different animals that that you're trying to record. But yeah, if you're able to capture as many shots as possible from many different angles, and yeah, this is definitely quite key. Try to make sure your subject's in focus as well. So you can do that through moving your phone or your camera backwards and forwards. Obviously, you can adjust on certain different. It depends on the phone or the camera, for example, that you're using, but you can adjust the focus. So try to make sure your pictures that you submit are in focus if possible. And a good tip for this is if you, for example, carry around a piece of white card, you can then use that as a clear background. If you're taking a photo of a beetle on a leaf, for example, you can put that behind the leaf and the beetle, and that will then allow your camera a bit more of a kind of steady location to focus on, because if there's a gentle breeze, for example, it can be blowing the leaf or the flower, and that can be a bit more difficult to allow your camera to focus. So that's a good little tip there. And then, yeah, as I said before, there's a description. So if there's any notes or things you've noticed or seen, so if you're, for whatever purpose, your camera is on black and white and you take a picture on your camera before going through the app, but you notice that the animal is a particular color, or if you notice something about the habitat, so say you take a photo of a plant and you're not entirely sure on the identification, but it's, for example, near the river, that can actually help to identify what it is. Similarly, for mushrooms as well, it's definitely very recommended to try and capture what habitat that mushroom is, because if it's based on bark or soil or on a live tree, it might be a different type of species based on the location it's found. These are sort of clues that can help into finding and determining the species as well. Okay. So those are a couple of points. Obviously, the plant it's sitting on as well is another good point. So if it's a beetle, you tend to find that particular insects prefer particular species of plants. So try to not only take a photo of that animal, but also the plant that it's on. So, for example, a dockleaf beetle might prefer being on a dock. And if you're taking a photo really close up of the dock beetle, that might necessarily be captured. But having a photo of the sort of environment that it's in as well is another kind of way that can help with identification. I'll leave this back to you, Alex.
Yep, no problem. So yeah, just some more specific tips on the various groups. So it's again focusing on that, trying to get the best photo you can and capturing the context and the correct features to make that process of getting it to research grade as strong as possible. So plants, context is really important. So where is it growing? What's the habitat? So if a plant's growing on a woodland edge or on a playing field, it's worth noting that in the comments. It creates what we call metadata, which helps us through that identification process when we're trying to finalize that. Yep, leaves, shape, size, color, and basal leaves. We've got a great example on the left-hand side of the screen there of a beautiful cowslip. So rather than focusing on the very attractive flowers, which we might be able to identify it from, if you just zoom out a little bit and capture that basal rosette of leaves, that means it's going to be a 9 times out of 10, you'd definitely be able to identify that plant. So it's just capturing multiple contexts a lot of the time, but also the whole part of the plant. So I tend to try and get personally, maybe for a plant, 4 or 5 things. So I'll go for top of the leaf, underside, context of where it's growing, and maybe a full picture. So yeah, again, stems, particularly important on trees. So that picture at the top middle is an example of that is opposing bud formation. So you do get, and you can get some if you want to splash out and treat yourself, some really nice Field Study Council guides, which will have all the botanical words on. I'm not a botanist myself, but I've got sort of basic understanding. So if you capture those buds as opposite or alternating, and the leaf shapes as well. Again, if you want to get into it, they've all got different names for the leaves. I think my favourite is lanceolate, which is shaped like a lance or a spear. But all of that, if you choose to go down that path and describe things, it's really useful. It doesn't have to be technical words at all, but growing in a park with the buds on the opposite sides of the stem will often really, really help. So flowers, noting down the colour can be useful. Again, in that notes section, like Jordan said, the colour doesn't always come up true in a photograph. So if you take a picture of a cowslip and it's looking very orangey in the picture, it might be useful to say, well, actually this in person looked really yellow. And how they attach to the plant. So you could have ones that are attached by a stem or directly to the plant itself. And for example, with oak trees and conkers, probably slightly the wrong time of year, but you get pedunculate oak and sessile oak, which is a great example of the acorns being attached by a stalk is the easiest way of separating those two. And again, if you find any seed pods, get the shape of the pods, describe that, try and take a picture of it. There's lots of species related to peas in Britain, and finding one of those seed pods that looks a bit like a tiny pea pod can make getting you to the sort of right area for identification much quicker as well. So yeah, just think about that wider context of what you're seeing in the plant and be a bit picky about what you take pictures of. Yeah, insects. So yeah, I think Jordan covered a bit of this. He stole my example, which is shows we're on the same wavelength. I was thinking dock beetles versus alder beetles, where if you get the plant, it basically gets you the ID because they look quite similar. But yeah, and dock beetles are a great one because they sort of all come out en masse during the weekend of the challenge, so the one we see every year. But yeah, where did you see it? What plant was it on? Which species, if you can ID the plant as well. Try and get a clear picture. The white card coming out is a really great tip. And if you're thinking you want to go out capturing some insects and getting photos, taking a few bug pots around with you, which could be a jam jar with a few holes in the top, like I used to use when I was a kid, or it could be a more professional looking one that I'd probably use now with a red top. And do put a little bit of extra time into trying to get the nice sharp shot of the organism. Again, if it's an obliging bug, they can be pretty tricky to get pictures of, but try and get a few pictures, and that sort of panel on the left shows some of the key angles that will really help. So side view, abdomen, and the face, so as many different angles as you can get on it. So for example, it's not necessarily most people's favorite creature, but the fly in the middle it looks like a splayed deer fly to me. It's some species of horsefly. And those iridescent striped eyes, which I would argue are absolutely beautiful. I don't think everyone agrees with me, but they are a diagnostic feature, getting that striping on the eyes. So it might be another one where you try and photograph it, can't quite get it right, but then you can note in that metadata section that the eyes had an iridescence and appeared striped. Yeah, so I think that covers a lot of it. You will get so the top right image is it's probably a shield bug of some sort. So you'll get things in different life cycles as well. So it might be that it's a common species that's not going to be very easy to ID. So you can try and capture a bit of behavior even in insects. So keep sticking to the example of the shield bug larva. You'll often get them shoaling on the bark of trees early in the spring, where you'll get lots of them that have just hatched sticking together for safety. So if you notice that sort of behavior, get an individual, but also try and get a picture of what they were doing and where they were. You're happy to move on?
Yep.
Do you want to do this one?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, just to it's quite a nice one, isn't it? This slide. So, it's just to essentially draw back out. We've kind of gone quite deep there into expert ways, essentially, of helping with identification and good ways to kind of identify wildlife, as close down to the species level as possible. It's important, however, to also be aware that not everyone's an expert in taking photos, not everyone's an expert in being able to identify wildlife, and know these things to kind of bear in mind when taking photos and when submitting records as well. But it's important to kind of note any attempt at making a record for wildlife is still really useful and can perhaps still make a record that is down to species level. So it's all about trying to, as well as possible, if you know certain characteristics of certain species to help identify, it will help. But also, if you manage to capture a particular trait which is very indicative of a certain species, or particular feature, for example, that can help identify a species to a certain level. So here's some photos on the screen of some actual research grade images and captures, which essentially have been verified down to the species level. So, but they're not perfect photos, as you can see. So the lesser blackback gull is a photo that's from really far away. Obviously, if lots of people are taking part with their smartphones, we don't have to we don't have access to brilliant zoom, so photos of birds in particular can be quite difficult. As Alex mentioned, you are able to use recorded bird song. Now, the app itself doesn't have a way currently to be able to tell you which species that is as a recommendation from that bird song, but still submitting that bird song can be verified by other users, or you can then use another application, for example, such as Merlin, to help you identify what that bird is and then submit that record. So I'd bear that in mind if you're kind of looking particularly at birds. But still, photos from very far away, if you manage to capture a certain feature or characteristic that's indicative of a certain species, that can still be research grade observation. So that lesser blackback gull, you can see the really indicative sort of darker black wings on the back of the gull there, which then is indicative of that species. Similarly, the wood pigeon, the photo there isn't a brilliant photo, and it is also quite far away. There's a lot of distraction on there from the sort of the rest of the tree, but it captures this sort of white collar that's indicative of the wood pigeon compared to other species of pigeons such as the feral pigeon or collared dove, for example. So yeah, your photo doesn't need to be perfect to be able to still make a research grade observation, or any observation, even if it doesn't make it as research grade, but is an observation that is identifiable down to either a species or a class of animal. It's still helpful in terms of being data for wildlife. And finally, as well, this picture on the right hand side here of the fly agaric mushroom. Now you can see the mushroom itself has been clearly eaten by some wildlife, maybe such as a squirrel, something like that, or trampled as well. So it's not in the best of states. It's not necessarily a live mushroom as well, but it can still capture that species is in this area, and that species is still very identifiable by its very obvious kind of very traditional kind of fly agaric red with the white spots. So yeah, don't be afraid to take photos, even if they're not perfect photos, and just get involved and submit whatever you can. And yeah, hopefully we can then make as many records, especially as research grade records, as possible. With things like mushrooms as well, it's worth noting very much that the multiple angles comes into play there, and the context of where it is. I've mentioned before about where it is, for example, if it's grown on the soil or on bark, makes a big difference. But the gills on the underside of the mushrooms is definitely always an identifying feature of a lot of different mushrooms. And a good tip for that, for photography wise, if you've got someone with you, try and get someone to maybe use their phone to kind of shine a light on the underside as well. That will kind of help with a clearer picture. You can use that for things as well as other things, not just mushrooms as well. But that's just kind of another little good photography tip if you're traveling in pairs or as part of a group for an event, for example. Okay, do you want to hop back in for that one, Alex?
Yeah, will do. So yeah, I think it is important to sort of revisit it, thinking back maybe a little bit to the that first slide with Mary Anning and the blossom in Japan. That citizen science does generate a greater understanding of the natural world, and iNaturalist in particular has proven incredibly powerful at doing that. So you've got the sort of headline at the bottom. Been 1,000+ studies published using that data, so scientific studies in 2024 alone, and there've been lots of other sort of exciting little headlines along the way of I think there was a extinct species was rediscovered from someone's holiday photos, wasn't it? And new species have also been discovered. A species of fly was discovered using the app. And it always reminds me of it's bird watchers saying that the longer you spend in the hide looking, the luckier you get. So the way I look at it is, if you've got 3 million people looking, you're going to find amazing stuff, and it's going to be really useful for our understanding. So it might feel like going out to your local park and taking some pictures of relatively common species just for fun isn't going anywhere, but it genuinely is. It does generate science. It massively betters our understanding, and also Coventry is an under-recorded city in particular for what we know is there and what we know isn't there. So every record you make, either over the weekend or not, just massively helps to support our growing understanding of the Midlands as a region, but also you're part of a global network of people who are. It's quite revolutionary, as you can tell. I'm pretty keen. But yeah, so get stuck in. It does go places, and it is really important to do. Yeah, so leave it there.
Do you want to mention a bit about licensing? I'll just quickly add to your points there with kind of how really useful essentially a lot of this data is, and how important it is for science, and how important it is for kind of building that picture of the ecology. And it has many different uses across several different areas of science and recording and understanding wildlife as a whole. But it's not only useful, it's fun. Is my kind of point to add there, really. Anyone who's used the app at any of our previous events, or has just kind of downloaded it and used it on the app store themselves, can probably attest to it as well as I can, from someone who's been supporting this challenge for a couple of years now and downloaded it for the first time the first year I was supporting it in my role at Warwickshire Wildlife Trust. It's really fun. So definitely get excited to kind of contribute and to take part as well. And it's kind of worth noting as well, whilst we're trying to kind of encourage people to take part in the City Nature Challenge and that 4-day weekend, you can use the iNaturalist app throughout the entire year. So you can be submitting these records to your local area, and you can be having fun and kind of learning wildlife identification, engaging with other people on there and helping to verify records as well. On your own terms throughout the entire year as well. So have fun with it was just my sort of addition to that point there.
Yep. So a bit of a change of tone potentially, but it's important. So we'll talk about licensing of photos and why that's really important. So we're looking for observations within the app to have something called a Creative Commons license, which means that people are free to access and use them for research in the future. So if we move on, so there's that's the key thing. Currently, only less than a third of observations on iNaturalist have that, and it essentially cuts them off from being used in scientific studies, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, there are situations, if you're a professional photographer and you've taken some professional photos that are part of your livelihood, to keep the rights to. It's understandable, but if it's just like the ones I take, which are usually just on a smartphone taken quickly, it's really important to make sure that they are accessible to scientists. So I'll quickly run through how to do that on the app. So these are screen grabs from my iNaturalist, so you can see some of my photos there, can't you? Yep. So so you load the app, open the menu using the dots at the top. It should open a sidebar with a little cog for settings, which will then open the third in that list. You'll get in settings, you'll get default licenses. Now, ideally, you want that to read CC0 or CC-BY. If it doesn't, you can tap on that, and it will open up the final screen, number 4 over there. And the key thing we're looking for, as we mentioned a while ago, is GBIF and Wikimedia. So just to reiterate, that's really important. It means that it gets shared with GBIF, which goes through to the NBN Atlas, which means that they'll then become freely accessible. And we've spoken about global studies and all sorts, but on a personal level, I use these sightings. I use those repositories of information to base my understanding of what's going on in Coventry when I'm doing project planning and things like that. So by doing that, it makes a huge difference. It makes that data freely usable and available for people such as myself, but also academics and lots of people across the world to use. So it takes, I would say, about 30 seconds if you follow that guide, and it's really, really worth doing. So please do it. I'll sort of leave it there.
Okay. And then, yeah, I'll just jump back in to kind of wrap up at the end then. So this is the last slide. It's a big calendar of all the events that are sort of public facing events that we've got going on. Just to note as well, there's quite a lot of different events that are happening that aren't listed here that are all sort of private events. So that kind of organisations are putting on for their own staff or for particular organised groups. So this doesn't quite capture everything, even though it's quite impressive in terms of just the amount of things that are happening between Coventry, Warwickshire and Solihull. So on the Friday, we've got Bioblitz and pond dipping at Kingshurst Brook in Chelmsley Wood from 10 till 5. So that's a kind of drop-in session that Warwickshire County Council is delivering. Coventry University have got an open to the public Bioblitz at Wickencroft Nature Park from 10 till 12. The Canal and River Trust are doing a walk, pond dip and bird watch at Hatton Locks and Hatton Meadow from 10 till 12:30. I think that one they're saying is kind of down to the weather, so they I think some of the activities they're hoping to do are kind of reasonably weather dependent. So keep an eye out for that one. But yeah, that's what's happening there. The Diocese of Coventry and the they're putting on a lunchtime Bioblitz at Shipston Star Churchyard from 12 till 2 on the Friday, and then our project, Sherburn Valley Project, putting on a family Bioblitz from 3 till 5 at Charterhouse, and then a sequence of events in the evening, a torchlight pond dip and a back walk from 8 till 9:30, and the pond dip is 7 till 8. That's at Charterhouse. So that's just one day. That's the first day. Saturday, similarly again, we've got the Diocese of Coventry doing the Coffee Morning Wildlife Survey for dog walkers at Old Milverton Churchyard between 9 and 12. You've got a Bioblitz at Ryton Pools, the Warwickshire County Council are doing between 10 and 3, and again that's a sort of drop-in session. Coventry City Council are doing a Bioblitz for outdoor education at Goom Abbey from 10 till 2. And then our project, Sherburn Valley Project, are doing a Bioblitz at Lakeview Park from 11 till 3, doing various activities such as sweep netting, a riverfly invertebrates, plant ID, pond dipping. And there's a junior ranger session as well for anyone looking to take part between the ages of 11 to 18. Sunday, we've got another Bioblitz at Abbey Fields, 10 till 3, and a Bioblitz at Longford Park from 10 till 2. There's a Bioblitz from 2 till 4 at Salford Priors Churchyard, and then we've got a sequence of Bioblitzes and a site walk and some riverfly invertebrates at Cowan and Wedge from 11 till 3 on the Sunday. And it doesn't stop there. We've got Monday, we've got a pond survey going on at Warwickshire University, Warwick Uni, not Warwickshire, on their Coventry campus from 10 till 11. We're doing a walk-in Bioblitz in Whitley from 3 till 4, and then there's a reptile survey and bat walk at Hatton Meadow that the Canal and River Trust are doing from 7:30 till 9:30 on that day. So those are the kind of events over the weekend that are open to the public. You can see that scan QR code at the bottom right of the sort of calendar there. If you scan that, that takes you through to a link tree. And on that link tree, there'll be several links to different pages. One of them is a web page that Warwick Uni have set up, which showcases all the different links to the events that you can find on the calendar. So have a scan of that and go through there if you want to register for any of these events. And then finally, we've got an event we're putting on in the days of verification afterwards. So it's kind of not for submitting records, but for people who kind of want to dive into the trying to help verify records and, learn further kind of down to species level, use some, field guides to help identify wildlife. We're kind of hosting a bit of a wildlife ID party at Brandon Marsh between 1 and 4 on the Friday. So there's multiple ways to take part still, even if you're busy over that weekend in particular. Okay, so that is all that's happening over the weekend. There's loads and loads on. Again, there's another QR code there to scan and download iNaturalist. So this is a kind of a good one to take a picture of or to take a screenshot of, for example. We also share this calendar on our Sherburn Valley Project Facebook page as well. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And yeah, we'll be promoting all the different events as well and the links to that. So if you're struggling to find them, yeah, go to the Sherburn Valley Project Facebook page and we'll be posting everything on there. Yeah, so there's many different ways to get involved. We hope you have kind of got something valuable out of today and kind of learn a bit more how to use the iNaturalist platform, what it means, and kind of the importance of recording and supporting with identification of wildlife. And yeah, hope you've had fun. Hope you feel kind of empowered and able to use the app. And yeah, we hope you can, in whatever capacity you're able to, support and join in with the challenge as well later in April. Is there anything you want to add to that, Alex?
No, I think you've covered it. Just get out there and have a bit of fun, really. It is pretty addictive and just enjoyable. So fingers crossed for good weather and have a good time. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll end there for the recording. So anyone who's watched online, thank you very much. And yeah, do follow those links. I'll put in the YouTube description links to some of the events and the web pages on there. So have a look in the description so you can find those links. For anyone who's here live online, yeah, we'll post the recording up onto our Sherburn Valley Project YouTube account. So if you want to re-watch anything back, or if you kind of missed anything, then you can sort of rewatch there. But yeah, thank you for attending. Hope you've got some use out of it. And yeah, we'll catch you over the City Nature Challenge weekend.